We are live. We're live, guys. Yeah, we are live. Bit of a low-key introduction. Yeah, bit of a while getting there. Few introductions, few false starts, but we'll get there in the end. Yeah, we're live. A bit of a slow start. I was like a bit panicky. I didn't see anybody appearing in the chat. And then all of a sudden 5 or 6 people appear, which is all good. So it's all good. It's all good now. There's 7 people, so it's all fucking good, man. Yeah, but you that I don't know the comments. So what's up, Chris? What's up, Bunny? It's all good, man. It's all good. Just that sheer terror of starting a stream when there's like nobody there, and you're thinking there's no comments, and there's nobody in the chat, and there's nobody appearing. You're like, oh fuck's sake, is this even worth it? Am I going to talk to nobody for 5 minutes before somebody jumps on board? But yeah, it's all good now. 7 people. Chris in the chat, Bunny's in the chat. It's good to have on board. Yeah, it's been a well. I mean, I streamed last week, briefly, technical issues, and I was going to jump on Piz's stream anyway, and then I had more issues, so I was on there for an hour and had to jump off. And then the week before that, I think Lorne was streaming at 1 a.m. So I kind of like cut that short because I don't want to like cross streams with like people who I'm like friends with in the community. But tonight it's just I mean, there's nobody streaming. I think Dan's streaming at 2 a.m. my time, which is like more than enough time for me to cover the shit that I want to cover. But I don't feel like restricted tonight. I don't feel like I've got to like try and keep it contained and like get through everything in like 30, 40 minutes, because I've got quite a lot to cover. I'll be honest here. There's a lot to cover tonight. A few things that I wanted to cover in the previous couple of weeks, which I didn't have time to, and then a few new things have come along. Obviously in the community, horror wise and shit. That wouldn't mind discussing. Get your guys' opinions. But yeah, so yeah, you're live, buddy. Yeah, thanks, Bunny. You've been lurking quietly. Chris says, I've just gone off his comments. I just beat that new Ninja Turtles game, my friends. If that's the game, the only Ninja Turtles game that means anything to me is the OG arcade game. I'm sure Chris, anyone of a certain age knows the game. It's the 4-player Ninja Turtles arcade cabinet, where I think the last baddie is Shredder, and he kind of like multiplies into like multiple Shredders. That's the game. That's the only Ninja Turtle game that means anything to me. And I think the level before you beat Shredder, it's Krang, and he kind of appears on a bridge or something along those lines. But yeah, massive nostalgia for the Ninja Turtles 4-player co-op arcade cabinet. Holy shit, man! That like early 90s, that shit was like heroin to me. It's the same style as the arcade. It has the same mechanic. It's probably the same game. That to me, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game for me is just, it's always that game. It's fucking 4-player. Leonardo, Raphael, Donatello, Michelangelo, team up with your mates and take on, and the first level was always Bebop, and the second level was Rocksteady, I think. No. The first level was Rocksteady, and the second level was Bebop. That's the game that I remember as a kid. That game was fucking, oh my god, so good. That and Final Fight, just next level beat 'em up. We're talking beat 'em ups. What's up, Anthony? Anthony's in the chat. Hey y'all. Anthony, what's up, man? Newcastle in the house. Yeah, so it's a pretty packed show tonight, guys. I'm not gonna lie, I've got a fucking lot to cover. So if I get distracted by the chat, it means I'm gonna only cover half the stuff I was meant to cover. Which I always do this. I always like make a bullet point of talking points which I want to talk about, and then I get like halfway through and I get distracted by the chat. It gets to 2 a.m. and then I've got to go to bed and I miss half of what I was going to say. But hopefully I can try and keep it 50-50 with like trying to make, points about what I'm going to talk about and interacting with the chat as well. I'm already getting distracted by the chat because people are talking about arcade games, so video games. So obviously I'm being distracted already. So yeah, Chris says they're releasing a collection eventually I might buy. Has the arcade and all the NES and Sega ones. That sounds cool, man. Definitely. I mean, yeah. I've got to. Don't get distracted by the chat too much, Mike. Don't get distracted. Stay on board. Stay focused. Don't talk too much about arcade games. Chris, stop talking about video games, please. Stop talking about video games from the 90s. You're going to distract me. So, it's okay, man. So, I'm just going to get on. I'm not going to get on track at all tonight, I can see. Anyway, video games, no, silence. No more video game talk. Well, you can, but can you just like maybe do it in sign language so I don't understand it? So Stranger Things season 5, no, not Stranger Things season 5, Stranger Things season 4 finale drops Friday. Guys, thoughts? Drop it in the comments. Where do you think the season's going to go? Where do you think we're going to end up? And more importantly, where do you think it's going to go going forward? Have we got confirmation that there's a season 5? Because did I misread it when I thought that there's going to be a season 5, or I was convinced that I saw somewhere that there was going to be a season 5, but I'm not entirely convinced that I just didn't imagine that. So if there is going to be can we just like ignore season? Okay, Ben's in the chat as well. Season 5 is announced, and I'm assuming it's going to be 87. See, here's my point, Ben. So they've announced season 5. Okay, has it been confirmed that it's going to contain the same characters from season 4? Is Millie Bobby Brown back? Is Finn Wolfhard back? Or are they going to make a jump forward? It will be the last. They said there will be a time jump. So why would there be the last though? Because it's funny you say that, Ben, because it kind of comes into line with a topic I wanted to bring up tonight. Is if they do move Stranger Things forward into the 90s, which as I think would be a good idea if they wanted to just to rejuvenate the franchise and make it a bit give it like a fresh paint, a lick of paint, so to speak, and make it bring it to a new generation, move it into the 90s. But if they're going to do one more season and it's going to be a time jump, then why would you only commit to one season? Surely a time jump means that you're going to start from scratch and look at maybe doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons. Yeah, that seems maybe. I mean, it just seems a bit of an odd. I mean, it seems to be like you either go for one more season in 87, or you just do a complete jump into the 90s with a completely new cast. Ben makes, that's a good batch. You know what? Ben says, I think Chernobyl might be involved at the time. He's right. Chernobyl did happen in 86. That's a good point. And that never even occurred to me. Chernobyl obviously was 86. Will that somehow play into the final 2 episodes or into a future season? Chris says, I can see 11 spin-off of 90. I'd watch it. I'd like to see a completely new thing, and I'll get into that in a minute. Mikey's on board. What's up, Mikey? Hello, YouTube. Hello, Mikey. Good to see you on board, man. Yeah, so in terms of like I've completely lost my train of thought now. But so in terms of season 4, with what's going to go down, do we think that anybody's going to? How do we think it's going to play out? I mean, because I can't see them killing off any of the major four, the major four characters. I don't think any of them would be killed off. I can see Hopper getting killed off, honestly, which I don't really care about because I don't even like Hopper. I think he's annoying. Um, I can maybe see. I think obviously it's looking like. Oh my god, hair. What's his name? Hair. Mike. What's the guy with the hair? Steve. I can see Steve getting back with Mike's sister, whose name escapes me because she just annoys me. But in terms of like the long-term plans for Stranger Things, I mean, where do we see it going? I mean, they're not going to kill off any of the four major characters. If they're going to go into season 5, they're all going to be alive. I'm wondering whether Will is going to come out to Mike that he's in love with him, because that's clearly where they're going with that. But Mike's obviously in love with Eleven. But I personally would rather not see a season 5. I mean, I personally think they should go straight and reboot and move into the 90s, which I'll just quickly read the comments. Sean's on the board. What's up, Sean? Steve is one high on the list. Yeah, I think Steve could possibly be killed off. 11 Hopper gives up bullet. I think the indie guys thought it. Yes, possibly. I think Hopper's fodder, to be honest with you. I think Hopper could die. Nancy, maybe. I don't know. Maybe Nancy. I don't know. I'm not sure about Nancy. Oh, Dan's on board. What's up, Dan? Sorry if I'm quiet. Something question. Yeah, sorry, Dan. Dan. No one's more loyal to the community than you, man. Every single stream, any live stream, whatever, whoever's live streaming, whoever's fucking doing any shit, you're in the chat or you're live streaming. I know you've got a live streamer too, man. That's why I went a little bit early because I thought I've got a lot to cover. So I thought, try and go a little bit early, but a lot to cover. But yeah, I thought don't want to be venturing into 2 a.m. territory because I know you're going to be live streaming then. And yeah, man, yeah, it's safe. But yeah, try and chirp in whenever you can, man, because this is yeah, I always value your opinion, man. Dan says they already teased the Hopper death. I think Lucas might be a big one they kill. Chris says Hopper's too important to Eleven's character. They should find plot to bring him back. As I say, it all depends where they go with season. If season 5 is a thing, then discount anything I've said tonight, because if they are going to do a season 5, then clearly certain characters probably will be kept alive. But personally, I don't care for a season 5. I think it should end now in 86. And the reason I say this, because this is topic of conversation for tonight was basically, talking about Stranger Things. End it now. Come back in a couple of years, reboot it, Netflix, if Netflix is still a thing, and move Stranger Things into the 90s, because it offers a completely different take on everything. You've got new music, you've got new fashion, you've got the birth of the internet, although that might not take precedence. It depends, it's me asking you guys again, in terms of like Stranger Things moving forward. If Stranger Things moved into the 90s, let's just assume that Stranger Things dropped in the 90s and it was guaranteed 4 seasons. What year would you like it to start with going forward? Like taking into account that maybe 3 or 4 years. And just in terms of what would you like to see musically, thematically, the fashion, because in terms of like, I think the 90s is such a golden time now to drop something, because a lot of us guys now, I know Chris is going to do, anyone who's not subscribed to Chris, by the way, /home video, go and subscribe to Chris, doing good stuff on his channel. And he's going to start a new like 90s series of videos about, movies from the 90s he loves. And because he's of an age now, he's getting towards 40, and I'm like mid 40s. So a lot of us guys now, and girls, Jamie, we're kind of like, we're of that age now where we've got that 80s nostalgia, but there's a lot of new people who are like getting towards 40, who have that 90s nostalgia. And I've got that 90s nostalgia big time. And the older I get, the more nostalgia I get for the 90s as well. Obviously, I still get it for the 80s, but as you get older, that 90s nostalgia kicks in more and more. So it's kind of like a Stranger Things reboot dropping in the 90s. I might drop. Why not? Here's my opinion, basically. So you take Stranger Things, you give it a couple of years to rest, reset. You don't want to like over. You don't want to pummel someone in the head with something too much. Stranger Things has been in people's attention constantly for the last 5 years. Couple of years, let it settle down, and then a couple of years from now, Stranger Things rebooted, phase 2, to coin like a Marvel phase, and drop it in 91, and you've got Nirvana as a soundtrack. I mean, just from the off, it's the whole grunge thing. It's flannel t-shirt or flannel shirt, and it's the whole like that pre-internet nostalgia of like the early 90s. Just that could be golden, and I think that could really, really, really resonate with a lot of people, because majority of people who are like subscribed to Netflix or Amazon Prime, they're coming to an age now where they're kind of like hitting the late 30s, early 40s, got kids. They're kind of like a little bit younger than me now, so they've got that 90s nostalgia, and I think that's where you aim to next. You look for that 90s nostalgia with a lot of the populace who are subscribed to these streaming services, and I think that is why. I mean, to be honest, the 90s is such a glorious decade, but I think in terms of like iconic years, like where would you aim to land a new show in a new decade if you were Stranger Things? Although there are multiple years in the 90s, if you're going to set it completely during the 90s and it's going to be a 4 or 5 season thing, you're going to have to go early in the 90s. And like I say, 91, Smells Like Teen Spirit. I mean, Jesus Christ, never mind. Just, you could base an entire season around just people just walking around to Nirvana and Stone Temple Pilots and shit like that. I'd like to throw a bit of shoegaze in there, but I'm not quite sure how big shoegaze was in America. Fucking me, I'd throw in all sorts of like My Bloody Valentine stuff as well. But yeah, 91 was a golden year for music. But yeah, I mean, Jesus Christ, man, Stranger Things in the 90s could be a thing of beauty. So let me just go back to chat, because I've missed a shitload of fucking comments. I like the way StreamYard kind of knows where my last comment was. That's quite nice. Sean says Hopper's been through enough. He deserves happy endings as Kim and Joyce. Well, I don't disagree, but whether that'll happen, I think Hopper's going to be. I just got this feeling. James says hello, Jamie. I said to say hello earlier on, but Sean says think season 5 will be 89. Okay. So if the time jump thing is interesting, because is it being confirmed there's going to be a time jump, but with the same characters? Because that's interesting. Because obviously, with the way they've aged so much, and with COVID, there's been a delay, and the whole, because Mike and well, they've all got so much older in like such a short space of time, and as you do at that age. So I suppose it would make sense with COVID and everything that, like, there's been such a delay in filming that maybe if they were going to do one final season, it wouldn't make much sense for it to be 87, because the jump from 83 to 87, they just look too different. They've grown too much. So maybe a jump to 89 would be good. I'd be down for that. Hell down. I'll be down for some music from 89. Oh my God. Get me some. It wouldn't really, I don't think the American audience would really get onto this, but some Manchester, Stone Roses, get some house music in there. Fucking hell, man. Chicago house, oh my God. Definitely some Chicago house music in there. Get some Stone Roses, get some, oh my God. I can just imagine, Mike and Waylon are just like doing a load of tablets, doing a load of ecstasy and getting just off the faces whilst in the down under. Oh my God. Fucking hell. Yeah, Sean says that it's been talked about beer time after 4. Okay. Ben says, yeah, they were killed half of one season. I don't think so. Yeah. 95. 95 is a good year. 95 is a good year. Definitely. And 96 as well, you'd have the whole Scream thing. So you'd have them like maybe, this new cast of characters going to watch Scream at the cinema. That would be a really cool sort of like way to just, oh my God. There's endless sort of possibilities for a 90s Stranger Things. There really is. 16 people watching. I think that's my record. It's gone down to 14. It was 16 a minute ago. 16, that's, guys. So I'm endlessly fucking appreciative. 77 subscribers and like 15 people watching live, man. That's just fucking amazing. I always say this every time, but it's so good. Such loyal as fuck, man. Chris says, but like early 90s grunge and angst, yeah, definitely. Sean says, ATC Strange Things, it's going to be so popular. They would definitely have to do something with the theme tune. They'd have to change things up. That synth would have to go and bring something new in. Maybe something like grunge, yeah. I don't know, But Dan says, I think they also have spin-offs in the works. Stranger Things is doing such major money. Well, for Netflix anyway, they've got to be doing something. They've just got to be doing something. I mean, it wouldn't make any sense. Ben says, 94 back when I was still in elementary school. Is elementary school like what I would class as infants, junior school? Like, is that elementary school is like 4 to 11 or 4 to like 9? Is it, Ben? Along those lines. We don't say elementary school. We say like infants and junior school, and then we go to senior school or high school. Bunny says it doesn't help that the 90s stars are coming back and we see MTV and stuff everywhere. Well, yeah, but the thing is though, remember back in the 90s when MTV played music? Like, when did MTV last play music? When did you last see MTV last play music? I could go into a whole other video about MTV in the 90s. I might not do it now because I'm just going to go in a rabbit hole for about the next 2 hours about MTV in the 90s. But that's a video in itself. I mean, Jamie says oh my God, sorry, battery. I want to plug my battery in, it's running low, sorry. Bear with me, guys. It's a very professional operation, this. Yeah, the battery only ran out on the laptop. So yeah. So it was supposed to be Jamie's comments. Yeah, James says, I have a lot of nostalgia for the 90s. They were some of the best years of my life. Like JV, Me too. I mean, I was born in 76. So, 10, 14 in 1990. My entire teenage years were the 90s. So I was kind of like, discovering like 1990s for me was like discovering girls slash women, discovering alcohol, you know. Never got into the drug scene, to be honest. Yeah, I was never like I was never like a stoner. I never got into like weed, and I never got into like doing like E's, and like, never got into like doing coke and stuff. I was just like, just like to drink. I did like to drink, still do. But yeah, the 90s was just, yeah. I mean, it was like the last era before like smartphones and mobile phones. I mean, like the late 90s is when mobile phones became a thing, or cell phones, as you guys call them. And it was the last era before, like, it was the last decade. What's it, the last decade before you could go to a gig and see a band but anyone wasn't filming it? Because obviously, right up until like probably the late 2000s, you could still do that. But I mean, yeah, great time to be alive. I mean, and I know it sounds a bit of a. I mean, my mum and dad would say, "Oh, well, you weren't alive in the '60s when we watched the Beatles live, and we watched the Rolling Stones, and we watched this, that, and the other. That was the time to be alive." And I understand that, but I do think there's a lot to be said about being growing up before the internet, and I'm eternally grateful that I grew up before that time. I'm sure most people in the chat, I think, are probably of that age where they grew up before social media. Maybe not necessarily before the internet per se, but just before social media really took a hold. But yeah, I grew up before like the internet was even a thing, and I think a lot of people were in the chat. And it's, yeah, I mean, for all the internet, for all the good it's done, I think we're all appreciative of the fact we didn't grow up with it. I mean, I can't even imagine how grim going to school in an era where there's social media, and just because I can imagine the school bullies now are just a million times worse than what they were back in the day, because you can't escape them 24/7. They're fucking there. If they're not there physically, they're there in social media, just like being knobheads, being pricks. So, it is what it is. Yeah, I'm just totally off topic again. Um, Anthony says, I grew up on 90s horror, especially enjoyed the early 90s, early 2000s. Yeah, I mean, I love late 90s horror. It's just like amazing. Scream was like opened the floodgates for a lot of like new movies, which just, I mean, it was in a bad place in the early 90s. It really was. And I know Chris loves the early 90s. I know he said, but I mean, I think even Chris would admit that, it wasn't the best time in terms of mainstream horror. I mean, there was certainly niche stuff going on for a lot of people, who were like into like Full Moon Pictures were doing the Lord's work in the late 80s, early 90s. But in terms of mainstream horror in the early 90s, it was getting a bit grim. And Scream was the kickstart that really sort of rejuvenated the whole thing. Um, okay, so I'm gonna have to move away from the comments just briefly. I'm gonna have to just carry on talking. It's like 1:15, and I've barely fucking moved on from what I'm going to be talking about. Okay, so this is a conversation I wanted to talk about last week or the week before, and it was basically I was going to do like a tier ranking of like horror movie masks, but I just thought, I don't even like those tier ranking videos. I feel that a bit. I don't like doing them because I just feel I did them and what briefly like last year, and I thought, I'd rather just, I feel like I'm getting taken away from the chat too much, so I'm just like, because I'm sharing the screens and shit. So I just thought I'd briefly just mention, just comment about what makes a good horror mask to you guys, because over the last, well, I mean, for as long as horror movies existed, there's been masks, and it's one of those staples of like of horror films. We always have masks. There's always something. It adds an element of mystery to a character. You know, whether it's you know, well, I'm totally lost of words now. In terms of like whether it's Michael Myers or Jason, whether it's plot driven or not, it's always just been a thing, and like in terms of like, what do you think like makes a good mask in terms of, like, plot wise, and in terms of, like, scariness and shit like that? Because I think most people always like look towards, like, it was like look towards Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers, and obviously, the lesser obvious examples, I would say, are movies where they're not even main characters. It may be something like Hell House LLC, just a clown in a basement, just like staring towards the antagonist, the protagonist. Sorry, that's more terrifying to me than probably any scene. Well, most scenes with Michael Myers, barring maybe a couple. Although I do love the Michael Myers mask, I just think it's all down to, like, you know taking a mask and then put it into a scenario where what makes it as chilling as possible. In terms of, like, the Michael Myers mask, I think I love about Michael Myers, like the original mask, the OG mask, is it's featureless, but it's hard to describe this, because when you look at the original mask, it's featureless, but there's something about it that is just really bone chilling. And the only way I can describe it is, if you look at the mask in Part 4, that's featureless, but it doesn't really emote any feelings. There's something. It just doesn't work. So you've got the two contrasting masks. Both are quite featureless, but one just offers this, like, bone chilling dread about it. There's just something about that original mask that's just like, it's just so. I mean, it's just so supernaturally. There is something almost supernatural about that mask. It's hard to describe. Whereas, like, you look at something like from episode 4, and it's like, it doesn't offer it. It just looks like a cheap imitation. And I mean, I don't. It's hard to, like, put into words, like, why that works. I mean, I suppose that's the genius of, like, John Carpenter, with, like, taking a William Shatner mask, turning it inside out, and spray painting it white. And, like, who would have ever thought that that would work? But it did work, and it worked to the level, like, I think in you watching the documentary for the original film, originally they were going to go with a clown mask, and the clown mask they sided with. They decided, that was genuinely terrifying. But then, when it may not be Nick Castle, but whoever walked in with this new mask, this mask that John Carpenter had worked on, or whoever had worked on, there was, like, an audible sort of intake of breath that was kind of like, this is just demonic. This is truly, truly disturbing. And that was what led them to go with the Michael Myers mask in part in the first film. But in terms of, like, what works I mean, what got me into this subject was, like, I watched a film recently called He's Out There, which is like a 2018 movie, which is it's a pretty solid movie. It's like, a woman with two kids trapped in, like, a remote location, with a guy outside who wants to just basically he's just a psychopath who wants to have his wicked way and just, like, wipe the family out. And the mask is really on. When I first watched the film, I thought the mask's really on point. I thought the mask was really, really, really on point. But as the more the film went on, I was like, I thought the mask went from looking on point to thinking, it looks like a little bit of a cheesy sort of rip-off of like a Jason Voorhees mask. And so the more I looked at the mask, the more I kind of, like, got into my head that this was just like a cheesy sort of rip-off. So it kind of, like, played into me as the film went on. It kind of played into it more and more. It's like, it kind of, like, took me out of the film a little bit, because it kind of felt like we've all seen those like really cheap, Friday the 13th knockoff films that they've done over the years, and it kind of started to feel like one of those movies. And the film is a decent movie, don't get me wrong, but the more I saw the killer and the more they revealed him, it just kind of took me out the film a little bit more and more. And it kind of reminded me of the killer in The Final Girls, which I love. The Final Girls is an amazing film from 2014. If you've not seen The Final Girls, just definitely check it out. But that's like a horror, that's like a slasher film parody. So the killer is intentionally kind of ridiculous looking with like this slightly ridiculous mask. So I started to feel like more like the killer in He's Out There was kind of resembling more of like a parody killer than a real life legitimate bad guy in a film, which as the film went on, that's how I felt. Which maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but that's how I felt. So I do think it's difficult to get a mask right. It's difficult to get that look right. Because the whole point of a mask is all masks kind of look a little bit ridiculous in a way. So it's kind of difficult to just get that right balance of not looking too silly and genuinely looking like disturbing. I think obviously, the Michael Myers original H2, Halloween 1 and Halloween 2 masks get it down to just on point. But it's not an easy thing to do. It's really not. So let's just go back to the chat. Lorne's in the chat. Lorne jumped in when I wasn't looking. I was too busy ranting. So Sean says it will be 89. He's calling it. So we can expect 89 to be the next season of Stranger Things. I'd be down for that. Bonnie Man, I just literally bought some high tops the other day. 90s. Jess in the chat as well. Hello, Sean, Jamie, Ben, Mikey, Slash, and all the chat. What's up, Jess? And of course, hello, Mike. Thank you, Jess. Who's won Horror YouTube at the moment? Is it Slaughterport, Jake, or I think Jake's won it, has he? I know we're not quite at the end of the month. It looks like Jake's going to win it. I think Jake's going to win it ahead of Lorne, or it could be Lorne. I'm not sure. And there is Lorne. Good evening, Spice Mushrooms. How are you all? I'm very well, Lorne, and everyone is as well. Lorne, that was 25 minutes. Jesus Christ, sorry, Lorne. Lorne, if you're still in the chat, man, I'm sorry. I'm just like I'm on a rampage tonight, man. I do apologise. Jess says, where have you been lately, Sean? We miss you. Sean says, at least someone missed me. Let me go back. Somebody said, is the Elvis movie worth it? Apparently it's meant to be pretty good. It's not really probably something I'd go and see on a cinema, but apparently it's meant to be like a decent movie. James said, I'm going to see, I was meant to see The Black Phone. It's in the thumbnail. I put The Black Phone in the thumbnail because I was going to talk about it tonight, and unfortunately, couldn't get to see it tonight. It's just, I'll explain in a minute, but yeah, it's just wasn't to be tonight, unfortunately, so I'll probably have to watch it next week. I'm a little bit pissed off because it is meant to be like a really, really decent film. Although apparently it's not meant to be that scary. Sean was born in 89, but grew up in the 90s. Well, yeah, definitely go for the 90s if you're born in 89. So, Sean, question. So if you're born in 89 but grew up in the 90s, I'll start again. Do you consider yourself a 90s kid or a noughties kid? Because if I was born in 76, so I'm unequivocally, is that a word? I consider myself like an 80s kid. I think being born in 76, 80s kid, I think, 4 to 13. In the 80s, I was 4 to 13. And then in the 90s, it was like 13 to 23. My maths is terrible. So I think I'm fair to say I'm an 80s kid and also a 90s kid as well. Chris, I would say, Chris, I think you're a bit younger than me, and I know you're a big fan of the early 90s. I would say you're more of a 90s kid, but even though you grew up in the 80s as well. But I'm curious, if you're born in 89, would you do you consider yourself more, I'd say you're more of like a noughties kid than a 90s kid? It's hard when you're born like in the middle of it. I would say with certainly like Lorne, like I think Lorne, you were like born in like 73, were you? 73, 74. So for you, you're definitely an 80s kid. There's not even any question about it. It's just 80s, 80s, 80s. But I think when you're born like towards the end of a decade, it gets a bit muddied. Jamie, I just posted my crochet up. I know you did, Jamie. Mikey says your system is typically going to 3 levels of schools: elementary, grades K to 5, middle, and high. So what, Mikey? So what grade are the kids in Hollywood movies who are like 27 who are in high school? Like what grade are they in? Like when you watch a movie like in America, in Hollywood, and you know these like 28-year-olds who are playing high school kids. I mean, are they in like a special like like grade? Because I don't really understand how these kids are still in school. And I'm referring to Stranger Things, especially Stranger Things. I mean, like, what is Steve still in school? Like, what is going on with Steve? Is Steve still in school? I mean, because Steve is about 30. Literally, he's literally 30, and what's he doing? Why is he hanging around with school kids? I mean, the school kids alone are at 18. They're like shouldn't even be in school probably by now anyway. So it's just like it's bizarre. Ben says, "I'm most remember MTV playing all that." But I don't know. So him. Short circuits get out Jamie. Beeps and Butt. Oh yeah, Beeps and Butthead was one. You know what? Oh my god! If Lauren's still in the chat, I remember like this animated sitcom from like the late 90s or early 90s called Daria. And Daria just reminds you of Sam. Sam Carlson from Lauren's channel. If Sam, if you ever see this, and she doesn't tend to jump on the live streams, maybe she watches back, but I'm sure if I tagged her on Twitter, she'd know. She just reminds you of Daria, very very dry sense of humor. Like it's just like it just reminds you of Daria so much. Ben says he'd be fine going back to a time before the internet. Me too. For a few hours anyway. Otherwise, I'm going to do this live stream. Sean says, so apparently next Ghostbusters film comes 2020. Oh my god, what? Why? Do we need another Ghostbusters film, really? I mean, the last one was pretty shit. I'm not going to lie. It was okay. It was better than 2016, but it wasn't great. Oh my god. We don't need it. Mikey's message is only yes. It's a bar says it. Yeah, definitely, Chris. I do like 2 though. I won't lie. James says I love Daria. We have Lauren's still here. Sean, actually, I'm not immortal. Last week, if anyone was through that point. Oh, Lauren, hope you're right, man. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I hope you're doing well. Sometimes you sound like you're not doing too well, and hopefully you're doing well. So, next topic. Okay, Halloween Ends trailer. Halloween Ends trailer dropped with Nope. I know Lauren is just desperate to see Halloween Ends. So Nope drops next month, or is it August? But we're getting the next. We're getting the final. Well, maybe it's the final Halloween Ends trailer. Where do we go with Halloween Ends? Like, what do we expect to see? I've covered this numerous times, but apparently they've done a few rewrites. Am I right in thinking? You help me out in the chat. Have they done a few rewrites since the because I know they dropped the trailer a while ago and it got mixed opinions. Now I don't know if the rewrites have happened since then or if they happened before then, but I'm not that entirely confident about the way things go with Halloween Ends, because it seems like there's a lot going on behind the scenes in terms of like how things are going to play out. And I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's looking too good personally. Yeah. Okay. I agree, Chris. Don't go with the trailers. But I mean, I think we can all agree that, Michael is gonna die in this film. And I say die, in closed captions. I think Laurie is gonna die in this film. No, I think actually she will die. I think she will die. I think it's gonna be Andy Matichik as the only one, as the last woman standing. Now apparently, from what I've read, the rights go back to Malika Card after this film. So I'm no expert on legal mumbo jumbo. Lorne will have far more knowledge about this. But this is the last Blum Halloween movie, and then the rights revert back to Malika Card. Now, is that true? I have no reason to think it's not. But like say I'm no legal expert. Like Blum, do they have any rights to like keep hold of things with certain small print? I don't know. I mean, if it goes back to Malika Card, what does he do with the franchise? This is not a franchise that's going to go away anytime soon. The Michael Myers character is just too valuable. I mean, they're going to do something with it. Will it go to streaming? Will we see like a reboot, a requel? I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, clearly, this new trilogy has done way too much money. Okay, it's lost money. Okay, 2018 did more than Kills, and Kills probably will do more than Ends. Well, actually, maybe not. Maybe Ends will do more than Kills, but we'll very much doubt it'll do as much as 2018. But clearly, it's a character and a franchise that makes too much money for it to just go by the wayside. And if you own the rights to that franchise, are you just going to let it go? No, you're going to sell it, or you're going to do something with it. So, like, where does it go? You guys in the comments, you post your thoughts. I think we've all done this in the past few years. Where do we think it's going to go next? And I mean, personally, I just think that I would like. I've got all these like crazy ideas about like how I would do like Michael Myers, and I would try and like build back that sort of like intensity of the character. Now this is going to sound like I may have done this in a stream already, but this sounds like a really really stupid idea. But I think it's a really cool idea. It's like you go back and you go back to 1978. You go back to where Michael's gone on his killing spree and he's disappeared. He's killed, Annie, and whatnot, and he disappeared. He was never caught. This is another reboot. Forget like Halloween Kills. He was never caught. He disappeared, and you basically do like a kind of like a sort of a TV show around the town of Haddonfield, and just basically make it a bit like a sort of Stephen King universe where you've kind of got like these other characters, other like weird shit going on in Haddonfield and the surrounding area. But at the background is this ever presence of like boogeyman of Michael Myers, and you just have like this normal town who's like struggling to cope with like what went on, but you bring in characters who who normal characters go through everyday shit, and you just have like normal family sort of stuff going on, but it's always a little bit more edgy than that. And there's always like this sort of like background of like what could possibly happen. And Michael Myers obviously is always he's just at the back. He's always always the background, not like literally, but just in the background of like every conversation, every like just like discussion. He's just there, almost like like a literal boogeyman. And then as you get towards the end of the season, it gets towards Halloween, and then obviously he comes back. I'm not quite sure how that would play out. It's just like an idea I've got in my head how to do something new and different. Lauren says, I've just described the aborted Friday the 13th television. Well, I'm glad I'm onto something. I'm glad to think that I've come up with something that like maybe somebody had an idea with. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's a good idea. Anthony says they might approach Buster to finally kill Michael Danger Tainment. God, no, please no. She also says, honestly, I would try the anthology again, like Halloween 3. At least we get a low definitely like Halloween Resurrection. Sean says, Halloween Ends will end with either Laurie killing Michael and she dies, or her granddaughter kills him after Laurie probably died. I think I'd go with the second one. I think maybe Michael kills Laurie, and then I think he's killed by Andy Matuschik. I think that's the most likely scenario. Personally, I think that's how it's going. I think that may how it plays out. So, okay, where am I up to now? Okay, so briefly, very briefly, couple of films I watched recently. Crimes of the Future, David Cronenberg. Not for me. I don't know if everybody's seen. I mean, I think Lauren probably has seen Crimes of the Future. I didn't like that film at all. Well, not at all. It kept me entertained, but I've got issues with it. It's just, yeah, a little bit pretentious for my liking, A film that they really did like is Watcher with Micah Monroe. Micah Monroe from The Guest and It Follows. I mean, I love Micah Monroe. I mean, Hot Summer Nights as well. She's in A24 film. Great, not a great movie, but she's great in it. Love Micah Monroe. I think she should be our screen queen. She's so good. I mean, and everything I've seen her, and she's just been so good. And Watcher is just fantastic movie. If you've not seen it, I won't spoil it because it's a brand new movie. But Micah Monroe basically is a new married to a guy, Romanian guy. Well, Romanian, as in by birth maybe. They go to Bucharest. She doesn't speak the language. He does. He's working. She's not. Moving to a new apartment, and it's very much along the lines of Eyes of a Stranger. Is it Eyes of a Stranger? What's the movie with set in Miami where she lives in an apartment and she's looking out over another apartment and she thinks there's a serial killer there? Is it Eyes of a Stranger? Anyway, it's very much like got a Rear Window, Disturbia, Summer of '84 feel. Not slightly more serious than those latter two films. But it's the idea of like living somewhere and looking out over to another apartment, and someone's looking back here, and you get these paranoid ideas about like this other person, and there's a serial killer in the area who's killing young women. She convinces herself that this person looking at her from the other apartment is somehow involved, and so it turns into this kind of game of like cat and mouse almost, where she thinks he's following her, then she starts following him. He starts putting complaints in against her to the police because she's put complaints in against him. So it's one of them. It's kind of like A, is she really getting stalked by this guy? And B, if she is this guy the local serial killer who's killing off women? And it could be neither of those things. And for the longest time, you're not entirely sure. It builds up the tension. This guy looks like a creep, clearly, but that doesn't mean anything. Just because someone looks like a creep doesn't mean he's doing anything bad. You kind of do start to wonder yourself, is this just her imagination? And I won't go into details. I won't go into spoilers because, it's a brand new film, but definitely worth, it's a 90-minute film, definitely worth your attention. Highly recommend watch it. Micah Monroe. Just check the movie out, man. It's a really, really solid movie. Okay, and a couple of before the last 10, 15 minutes. A couple of new trailers dropped in the last week or so. New one called Smile, which I don't know if anybody's seen. It looks interesting. It looks like an interesting premise. The trailer looks interesting. I'm not entirely sure. It looks very reminiscent of a movie that came out a couple of years ago, which name escapes me, but when people, I don't know if it's when they're about to die, they have have a smile. It sounds really, really basic. They do have a smile on the face. I think it's called Truth or Dare. I'm just gonna very, very quickly sort of go on IMDb because it does feel like a little bit like it's a bit of a rip off of that, but it does look like its own thing. It does look like an interesting movie. I'm not gonna just shoot it down, but I think it is Truth or Dare where. Yeah, I think it is Truth or Dare where they kind of have a similar look to when they just before they die. And I think the smile is kind of like along those lines, where it's some sort of curse. That's definitely where they're going with this film by the looks of it. It's like some sort of curse, which I mean, I don't mind. It just seems like it looks interesting, but it does kind of look a little bit like something that's been done, a million times before. A film that has intrigued me a little bit more, coming out in August, is called oh my god, what's it called? Barbarian, which I won't even go into too much detail. I mean, I basically watched one trailer and I don't even want to know any more about the film because it looks really, really intriguing. It looks like some sort of house share gone wrong where a girl turns up to rent a house and somebody already living there. There's a mix up, so they're living together, but the trailer ends up with her going into a basement and just looking for something. And it looks like a really, really creepy premise. And I'm really down for this film. I mean, it could be just complete dog shit. But it's looking at the trailer, I'm just gonna check out now because I really like the look of the film. And I kind of checked out the trailer within 30 seconds because I didn't want to see any more of the film. Because I thought, you know what, I'm done with getting spoiled on films. So I kind of just checked out, but it looks like a really, really decent idea for a movie. So what the last minute of the trailer showed, I don't really want to know because I'm kind of sold on the premise of it. But yeah, I mean, hopefully it's looking good. So I'm pretty much done with what I'm going to cover tonight. I've managed to wrap it up quite in a reasonable amount of time. I think an hour is pretty good. Chris, I know obviously I left Chris, obviously you're still watching. I left my email address on one of your videos. I don't know if you deleted it because obviously it's not a good idea just for me to leave my email address lying around the internet. But if you did make a note of my email address, and I'll put this out, to everyone in the chat as well. I've got, I'm working on a couple of ideas for new content. Basically, a while ago, I did a video about, basically taking a year and making a celebration of that year. And I did 1988. And, I thought the video went well, but obviously that was just me riffing until tonight. And I feel like a video like that needs something to bounce off. And so obviously, Chris, obviously you're in the chat, I've mentioned in one of your videos. So going forward, maybe in the next couple of months, I'm looking to maybe start doing a few more live streams on a Friday night. Starting to maybe do a few more live commentaries. And obviously, one of the things I do want to do as well as live commentaries is an idea of like kind of hitting upon, similar to like what I did with the 1988 video, is like taking a decade like the 1990s and basically focusing on a certain year and just basically going over like pop culture of that year, music, the movies, TV shows, everything connected to that year. And so obviously, it's the sort of thing I obviously don't want to do just by myself. Obviously, so Chris, if you have got my email address, and I'll put my email address in another video of yours if you need to. But hit me up, or I'll hit you up whenever, because obviously I want somebody on board who is like has that 90s nostalgia. Somebody who grew up in the 80s or the 70s and has got like that nostalgia for the 90s, because it's important that the person I'm talking to, like yourself, knows the 90s and like knows what they're talking about, and they actually grew up in that time. So you look at I think tell you what, look, I'll just put my emails into the comment section. It'd be a lot easier. Just put my email just out there for everyone. So Chris, make a note of this, man. Yeah. So there's my email address. So yeah, so make a note of that email address, Chris, because it's just easy. When I want to get round to like doing like prepping a video and doing a live stream, if you obviously want to be on board, which I think it's something you'd want to do. It's just obviously I want to make it, get a time slot and get a night to set it, and all that, and get just and give you time to prep as well, because obviously just your memories of the 90s is going to be a lot different from mine, and that's the whole point, of like a live stream like that. It's like just bouncing off each other, what we remember of a certain year. Because ideally, I'd love to start off with like 1996 and just talking about Scream and all the stuff around that film and just the music and the video games and shit like that. It'll just be a blast. Do you know what I mean? So, but obviously, I can't just like drop it on you like at the last minute. So if you've got, there's my email address. So, just if you email me your email address, then it's all good. And if I'll get in touch with Griffin as well. Griffin's a bit younger than us though, so I don't know if Griffin can really get on for the 90s thing. Lorne may be interested, but would Lorne be too old for the 90s? I don't know. He's older than me. Lorne's ancient. Lorne was sipping soy lattes in coffee shops by the time 1990 came around. So anyway, I've been rambling on for like an hour and 5 minutes, so I am gonna make my way to bed now. 17 people in the chat at one point, which is just amazing, man. Amazing. For 77 subscribers, fucking hell, man. I'll take that any day of the week. Everyone in the chat, you are. I'm not going to go through the chat because it takes too long, but everybody in the chat, you are legends. Thank you so much. As I say, I will be back next Tuesday. And again, I'm going to be starting to do live streams on a Friday night intermittently, hopefully with Chris and other people as well. But yeah, guys, I will see you next Tuesday night, as well as in other live streams of other people's channels. Legends. See you later.